Hello, Patrick. Welcome.
Hello, Anneliese.
I'm very pleased that you're here today to talk about leadership because we're talking today about identity, which is actually the core element of our 3D leadership concept. It's the basis of the concept, so it's really important. But before we dive into more of who you are, could you explain a bit more of what you do? Like what your job is and your roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, Anneliese, I'm the CEO of Polyscope. Polyscope is a global market leader in a specialty polymer market. We supply granules
Okay.
as an end product to the market. Some well-known markets being the automotive with customers like Porsche, Ferrari, Bentley, but also Volkswagen. We supply to the electronics market where we lead technical innovations for companies like IBM and Siemens as end customers. And a major market for us is the ink and coating market, architectural coatings, and customers like PPG, Oxo, Sun Chemical, so the leading companies in those market segments. I started my position at startup company, basically, commercial startup company. So I led it from a startup to a world market leader position today. That's what keeps me busy.
Okay. And does it give you energy?
It gives me a lot of energy, yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's a very dynamic, we dare to say, very young company. It is young in its age in this industry. 14, 15 years is still very young because there's a long development cycle in this industry. But we also work with very young people. And on the other hand, we work with retired people, even within the company. So the spread of age is huge. And it gives a fantastic dynamic within the organization.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, as I said, the topic of today is identity. And identity meaning who you are as a leader and then what impact that has on the company. So, is it okay if we dive a little bit more into your identity and who you are as a person?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, if I would ask you, who is Patrick? What would you say?
I think I'm a social leader. I would like to see people and teams engage in a social manner. I'm very analytical, so I don't need all the details, but I need the overview. And based on my analytical skills, I connect those overviews to come to conclusions or decisions. I think I'm rather rigid if I take a certain position, a leading position or a vision, and sometimes I'm way ahead of the crowd, and sometimes I'm pushing and coaching the crowd. So there's quite some dynamic to that part. I think negotiation style is not conflictuous. It's always trying to find a mutual understood position and build a long-term relationship, whether it's with a supplier or with a customer or with the internal team.
So it's nice how you already make the link to what you do in the company, because what I understand is that you like the interaction. It's also how I know you, the interaction with people, and you like to look more for more synergies rather than like opposing views. Is that?
I think opposing views are very important to understand the spread of the position. And I can even accept at certain points opposing views because they give a dynamic which is different than bringing all together at one place and then to start. So I think I'm not leading to conflicts. I'm not shying away from conflicts because emotionally I know those are just different positions based on different arguments. And I think we can all learn from different positions.
So you're also not afraid of conflict.
I'm not afraid of conflict because I don't see those as emotional conflicts or personal conflicts. Those I'm afraid of because that doesn't lead to success normally. That just leads to less energy, frustration, and negative emotions. But to have a difference of opinion and therefore feel a conflict, that is actually very helpful.
In your opinion, if you think about identity or who you are as a person, how much do you think a leader should show of his or her own identity in an organization?
As much as is needed for the
Okay.
organization to understand that he's always acting genuine.
Okay.
So it's kind of a no surprise leadership style. Stay very close to yourself. It doesn't mean that it always matches with everybody and that everybody is happy with that leadership style, but at least it's always genuine and people know what to expect. And I think that is the important part, because if you start shifting your leadership style too far away from yourself, you lose energy and people start to feel it's fake. You're not really mad. You're just playing a game.
Right.
You're not really happy. You're just trying to, please me. And I think that's not me. I'll try to stay as genuine as possible and as close to myself and be open to other positions at that point. So I think that's an important part which drives me.
And how do you safeguard that for yourself? Because I presume that to be as genuine as possible, at times you also ponder or you question, where am I in my life or what is important, or has that been very consistent throughout your life? In the sense that you've always known very well what's important, what you stand for?
I think I don't have much issues to understand where I stand and what I find important. So I think that is a good base to start from. I think I was raised in a very simple manner. Just do normal.
Okay.
Just be grounded. I remember once when I walked out as a child with my soccer bag and we were playing a very tough team, very tough opponent. I was head down, and one of the local people came with a bicycle and he stopped and he said, "Patrick, also these children just have moms.
Right.
So why are you looking down or why are you looking up?" Because he's basically saying they both at the same time. So probably what people see is Patrick. He's not looking down, but he's also not necessarily looking up and taking a different position.
And so, sounds like, if you remember it after quite a few years, that it was an important moment for you.
It was a very important moment for me, yes, because my mom also raised me like that. We are three children and we all do different things in life, but she was proud exactly the same. And she listened to my success stories in the business like she listened to a success story of my sister with the children. Like, there was no difference. And that I carry on. I think it's not because you have a certain position that you have to raise your head. You have to keep level with yourself and probably with the stakeholders around you, and employees are the stakeholders as well.
And that's the being genuine that you talk about.
For me, that's being genuine. I don't necessarily knock down if I meet another business senior who's most likely in our industry has a market cap value which is tremendously higher than the one Polyscope has today. We just try to level, and if you don't walk away and if you stay genuine, then people are really willing to support and really willing to connect because they know how you're going to respond to it.
So whether you're a leader of a very small company or a very big company, as long as you stay true to yourself and genuine, you stay connected to who you are. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's the most important part, because otherwise everything you do everybody senses it is not genuine enough. It's not you. You're playing a game, and people don't like to play those type of games.
Yes. It's interesting because I was going to ask you, like, how were you as a boy, and how is that still visible today. And it seems like you mentioning this example of, being in the soccer game, they're already also in the types of things people do in their childhood. It also often says a lot in terms
Yeah,
of
I
the
also
interaction and the.
obviously, if I compare myself to the development of some of my friends from a business perspective, I have progressed, but they are still my friends. They are the same group of people, and we have the same conversations. And I always say there are a few digits which make the difference, but that's it. The problems are basically the same. If you're discussing 1 million or 10,000 euros, the underlying problem or the opportunity is probably the same.
Yes. So do you do anything specifically to remind yourself to stay genuine or true to yourself, or does it come that natural that you don't even have to think about it?
No, I do think about it. In my management choices, I think about it a lot because I like to hire people who remind me of that. So they are completely different. They
Okay.
are where I'm more overlooking and using my analytical power to connect and to take decisions. Some of my top management members, they are very detailed and they're very structured in their approach. And I like to see the difference within the leadership team of Poliscore because that creates a strength. And don't shy away from difference of opinion because at the end, my comment is always, we don't need to agree today. At some point in time, I know that we will agree. Because either I'm behind on your view or you're behind on mine. If we keep listening, keep progressing in the same direction, there will be a point of time where we connect. And then probably the one will progress and the other will. It doesn't matter as long as we move into the same direction. So you do the way you feel you need to do it. I do the way I feel I need to do it. And together we are stronger because you have qualifications where I don't get any energy from, and it's vice versa. So, and that reminds me on a day-to-day basis that it is important to look at your strength much more than your weaknesses. Because if you focus on the strength and you know how to position them, that gives you as an individual very easy a lot of energy.
So I notice, or I hear you saying a few important things, because it's pausing on a regular basis to see what your strengths are and staying true to it, and allowing yourself to stay true to your strengths by hiring or surrounding yourself with people who are often almost the opposite or very different from you to find the synergies.
Yeah.
And I also hear a lot of trust. Trust in the sense of trust and humbleness. Trust in the sense of, like, at a certain point in time, even different views will come together, because we will either, you say, one person is not having the insight that you have, or the other way around, coming together. And also the willingness to constantly learn from other people. The openness.
Yeah, there is a lot of openness because I need that openness to be strong myself. So if I want to maintain the overlooking position and want to use my analytical skills, I need to be open to the different views, because otherwise I can never connect them. So for me, it's absolutely needed to understand the position of others. To be able to do what I'm good at. So if I would block that and if I would impose that, it would make it very difficult for me even to work.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because I'm a practice engineer, I obviously step too far.
In
That
a
I
way.
in mingling in the content, trying to create my view in an area which is not my direct responsibility. But I have surrounded myself by people who dare to say, Patrick, you're just engineering yourself. It's just another opinion which you oppose. I listen to it, but I don't do anything with it. anything other than listening and maybe adjusting, but not taking over your view. And I think that's the important part, that you have people around you who dare to listen to a leader, but not necessarily do what the leader says. That is something completely different. So that protects me from going too far into the details. And if that is balanced within a team, then everybody feels a lot of freedom for their area to work and to drive the results which they seem possible.
And it's something that you have created as well. I hear, all right. I mean, I think the willingness and the openness to create an atmosphere or a company where you allow people with very different views to also say, "Hey, Patrick," that says a lot about you.
Yeah, because I have the most conflict with people who actually are more like me and who have the same voice, and there's something not matching here, because it doesn't make us better. We complain about the same things and we get energy from the same things, but then why do we even speak? That is the feeling which I get at the end of a conversation like that. So we did agree already. Yes. So then what was it worth?
So no challenge.
No challenge, but also no learning curve.
Okay.
Because if you surround yourself by people who all think the same, then why do you even need them?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you might as well do without them. Then it just becomes an operational theme.
From what I know also about you and about the company, I think that ability you've also used to create some partnerships with, sometimes also a bit out of your sector, because you broadened your view on learning and interacting with different kinds of people and sectors.
Yeah, I think if you look at the industry in which we're active, we're pretty far away from the end consumer, from the end market. And since we are specialty niche, we need to provide solutions. But that actually means that you need to have a very well-defined problem statement or opportunity statement, which is not at hand in the value chain position where we are. So what we do is we partner up through the value chain to collectively put that knowledge together and then derive from that actually the work which we need to do to fulfill. Because otherwise we're just doing what the customer asks us to do, and they don't know as well. Mm-hmm. Our next partner in the chain, they also don't know really what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be successful, at the end, making that translation as good as possible and as direct as possible is a necessity. Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot of opportunities out there, but you need to focus on the right ones to be successful at the end.
Mm-hmm. And if you focus on the right ones and the ones that are successful in the end, how much does your own leadership or identity play a role in that?
I think it plays a very important role, because the leadership style determines the way people respond to opportunities. And our style has become risk is an opportunity assessment.
Okay.
So we made a major change in this industry because we made a different risk assessment on, for example, what our factory was able to produce. And we looked at a risk assessment from an opportunistic point of view and not from a defensive point of view. It's the same risk assessment, but it leads to a different decision. Mm-hmm. So we decided to continue where large chemical corporates would have decided to stop. Mm-hmm. Continuing that meant opening new markets, growing the company, being able to acquire competition, becoming a world market leader. And I think that is very important, because it's your leadership style which determines if you assess a risk defensive or offensive. Mm-hmm. And we had great leaders founding the company who thought of that process. Mm-hmm. So that is yeah, it's become very important. I think the impact of leadership is very important in that sense.
And there, like you say, your personal focus rather than the opportunity than on the risk, rather on the potential than on the risk,
Yes,
or
so I'm realistic but positive, and I'm pretty analytic. So I connect the dots and I ask the question. So yes, it's a risk. What is the worst case scenario, and what is the best case scenario? And you start to weigh as a balanced decision, what are we going to do? Whereas in large corporates, if only the word risk is being mentioned,
Yes.
everybody loses all the energy and walks away. Every opportunity has a risk. It's not just opportunity, it's balancing risk and opportunity and taking those decisions in the right way, which lead at the end to success. By the way, by having many failures as well. So it's not it's not an analytical straight line to success. Absolutely not.
and then also like in the failures, what can you do with the failures, and what can you learn of the failures?
Yeah, and how do you
Or-
deal with failure?
Right.
We had major projects at signing, which then at the end were not were discontinued, which led to obviously a drop of energy. But you look at the condition of an organization, not if they lose energy, but how fast they regain energy. That's condition of an organization. So it's okay that you lose energy, and it's very likely, because otherwise you were probably not interested enough if it doesn't mean anything to you and you just continue. But what I sense within the organization is that there is, the people come back to their normal level again pretty fast and reflect in a positive way and not maintain a very negative style for a long time.
For you, also during the lockdown or the COVID times, where you had to shift considerably also in the organization, with all of a sudden putting policies in place, having many people staying at home, and the gaining energy and losing energy, how did you cope with that for yourself?
Being realistic and managing expectations.
Okay. For yourself
first.
also.
And for the organization. We send the people home before there was a decision being made by politicians.
Okay.
Which is a very important part, because you show the organization that you are willing to lead instead of follow.
Yes.
Whether it's a minute before or days or weeks before, it doesn't matter. If your voice is there without a defined voice of somebody else who actually pushes you into it, it already gives a sense of being in control. And I think we made a pretty fair assessment of how long this was going to take and still will take, and a pretty fair assessment of which positive elements we will derive, and obviously which negative effects we will see. And so far, I must say that we're pretty well in line with our expectations, and that means that people can accept it. And that's also what you hear a lot in society. Just tell me what to expect. Don't make it any nicer. Don't make it too short term, because it doesn't help.
Yes.
Be realistic.
Yes.
Don't make it worse necessarily, but also don't make it nicer. So show me what you expect and why you take certain actions.
And there we go again to this being genuine. The honesty, the being genuine comes out in what you just say again.
Yeah, it was a very simple reflection. How long did China deal with SARS?
Yes.
So they were busy there for 3 years. Now they did faster because they had that experience.
Yes.
It takes 3 years.
Right. Right.
And that's it. And it will go up and down. And now we believe it will all flow away. It will not. We will be again challenged with elements of this COVID-19, whether in a different form or shape. And that's a difficulty, because if people believe that it's over and it's not, that is killing energy. If you say, just prepare, it's the next 3 years, and you might have some positives there, but it might also go the other way again, people can, in some way, much easier accept.
So taking initiative, being realistic and positive, being analytical. If you were to go back to that boy who is playing soccer, would you be playing soccer the same way? I mean, is that something that you can see throughout your life, really?
Now, my soccer was not was was not the best, I would say. I was in some way, I had a lot of influence on the team.
Okay.
I was not the best player, but I was the captain of the team at the end. So in there, I see an analogy. I always led my own game by with the idea that it's better to work 20% and get 80% of the result, and do that 5 times, because then I believe that I could, in a dream world, I could achieve 400% result. And I made it my own Cruyff statement. And it's the guy without the ball never scored. So that meant for me, if I had to play defense, I would never follow that guy, because at that point he would never have the ball.
Right.
Which obviously doesn't always work, because sometimes he gets the ball and scores. On the other hand, it also means that I could play my own game, which also meant that I could put players in position to score. So it was a balance of risk
Yes, that's
and
right.
opportunity. It was leading a more generic view to get to a maximum result, and not just by doing hard labor, but by being
Smart.
a bit cunning and smart at the same time. I would even dare to say, yeah.
Yes. So there you see like a really nice theme, or common theme that was already there from a very young age.
Yeah, although at that point I didn't translate it
No.
the other way around. That is absolutely correct. What I did state is that when I graduated, I wanted to have control of strategy and strategic decision and choices, and lead my own company, not as in my own company, but to have real influence. I remember my friend saying, let's become a consultant. And I said, what? I didn't really study very hard. I got good grades, that's something else. But what are we going to tell? So I wanted to have that experience myself, leading my career to a certain level of business understanding, and then potentially start to speak to others about it. And I think now I get to the point where I can support startup entrepreneurs. But I'm a lot older.
So what would be your recommendations to other leaders in terms of, on the topic of identity? What would you say to other leaders is important of how identity is linked to the role that they have in the company?
I think, first find out your own identity.
Okay.
And have that mapped, and not too detailed, but just in general. And then convince yourself that you stay to it and that you're proud of it, because it doesn't matter which identity you have, but you have to be proud of it yourself, and you have to be open enough to accept other identities.
Yes.
And then you can become a team which accepts diversity, which is a slang word nowadays, in its fullest.
Yes.
And not even looking at stupidities like gender or religion, or because those are all basically not relevant.
Not relevant because the core is the identity itself.
It's the character of the individual.
Individual.
Yeah, and obviously you can have certain beliefs, which is fantastic. Those are difference of opinions, basically, and you may disagree, but that's okay. and then you probably have argumentations. But it doesn't mean that somebody has to move. It means that you disagree. Yeah.
So it starts from the person and the identity and the openness to other identities.
And to be proud that everybody can be proud of its own identity, of its own position, and accepting, and to have valued conversations, but not trying to pull one into the other side, just accepting that it's different.
Accept difference, and then, like you said before, coming together on the differences and allowing.
You need to have a same goal, a same direction.
Yeah.
It starts to become really difficult if it's different identities and they walk a different way. Yeah, that is not helpful. Then you have a problem as a leader.
Yes.
But difference of identity, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Patrick, for talking more about identity, the role of identity, your own identity, and the impact that it has on Polyscope. And I've had the privilege of witnessing it for a few years. And I clearly see also the impact of your leadership on the organization. And I think it's a very nice role model for other companies. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the compliments and for the opportunity.
No, it's straight from the heart. So
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who are you? A very important question, and a question that I believe should be much more asked than what do you do? When we give each other our business cards, it has usually a title or a function of what do we do. But it's not really asked very often who you are. And yet we think at Qlick that it's the start of everything. Very often, at a certain point in your career, what you do may or may not be aligned anymore with who you are. And then it becomes a clash. Very often when you're younger and you have certain skills developed or you have a degree in one particular thing, you go with that degree and you make your career. And then sometimes you start working for a company, you become a leadership position. And sometimes in coaching, we get to the point where people don't feel anymore that they can really be who they are in what they do, in their role within a company. And that's usually when the clash comes. So that's why we strongly believe that identity and who you are is the cornerstone of everything else. Actually, Chantal, my business partner, and myself wrote a book about it, Be Your Own Leader. And the very first part, big part, is who you are, and then what do you do? And so where do you start with knowing who you are? Well, I could talk forever about this. We wrote a whole book about it, as I said. But just to give you a few tips, start by increasing your awareness. You can do this by journaling, talking to other people, talking to a coach, going in nature. Just reflect a little bit deeper on increasing your awareness of what is important to you, what your values are, what you stand for. Secondly, do this by observing yourself. We call it third position. So if you would be an outsider looking at yourself, what would you see? And is what you see something that you are happy about or not? So what do you learn from that? And finally, when you ponder a bit more on who you are, don't go about it in a mere analytical way. Otto Scharmer of MIT says you have to go through the eye of the needle. You have to strap yourself from all extras and really go to the essence of your being. And that requires also using all your senses. So go at it in a slightly deeper way as well. Again, could talk about this for a long time, but I'm just going to look right in the camera and ask you again, who are you?
Thank you for listening to the Cues of Qlick. We hope that we have inspired you and that you have learned things that you can use in your daily life. Please spread the word, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media.